In this build video, you're going to dominate end game content, especially Grandmaster Nightfalls. Your strategy involves letting your grenades do all the work. These grenades will stop and freeze targets, and the best part is that the enemies won't even bother destroying them. If you'd like to see more Destiny 2 builds that are good for end game content, be sure to hit that like and sub button. Without further ado, let's get right into it. Let us first start with the exotic weapon we're mainly going to be using for this build. This weapon will allow you to slow and freeze targets. Because of the intrinsic trait, rapidly landing precision hits causes targets to become slowed. So the more you land precision shots, the more likely they'll freeze. And what's cool about this weapon is that you can be able to refill the magazine when collecting stasis shards. And the weapon perk will help you do that. While creeping attrition is active, that's the buff, destroying stasis crystals or landing precision final blows creates a stasis shard. The stasis shard returns to you, and collecting stasis shards refills the magazine. But we can be able to enhance this even more with the catalyst. Whenever you collect a stasis shard, it would gradually overflow the magazine. It's basically overflow, but instead of you picking up a special ammo brick or heavy, all you would have to do is collect a stasis shard to proc this perk. The second one is Headstone. Precision final blows spawns a stasis crystal at the victim's location. And what's cool about this is that whenever you destroy a stasis crystal, you're also going to be granted grenade energy as well. So this weapon is going to be crucial for this build because we're mainly prioritizing in grenades. This exotic gauntlet on the Warlock will help you dominate Grandmaster Nightfalls, because it will grant you an extra cold snap grenade. So instead of having one, you're now gonna have two. Your cold snap grenades have better tracking and grenade ability upon hitting or freezing an enemy. We can also tie this exotic armor piece with the aspects we're going to be using for this build, which makes it ew. Let's head to the fragments, aspects, and abilities for this build. You're gonna want to use this Warlock subclass, aka the Shadebinder. And here are what abilities you would need to use. The first one is your class ability. What you're going to need to put is Healing Rift for healing, basically. More healing the better, because stasis doesn't really have that much good healing. And for the stasis grenade, I did already mention what grenade you need to use, but if you guys forgot, you need to use Cold Snap Grenade, a grenade that freezes on impact and sends another seeker to find and freeze targets. Now onto the aspects. Both of them are very crucial for this build. The first one will allow you to convert your stasis grenade into a stasis turret. All you would have to do is hold your grenade button and it would convert it into a stasis turret, which fires slowing projectiles at nearby targets, and it would occasionally freeze them because they're applying the slow stacks to that target. And if they also die by the turret, it would also transform them into a stasis crystal, which is pretty cool. But mostly they're going to be slowing and freezing most of the time. And the turret will also stun overload champions because it's mostly going to be slowing targets. So all you would have to do is chuck the stasis turret at a overload champion. The turret will look at them and slow them to death. The second aspect will enhance the freezing effects for your abilities and the turret as well, and also for the exotic weapon we're using. Whenever you shatter a frozen target, it will spawn seekers that track and freeze other nearby targets. And whenever you shatter a frozen target, let's just say it's an unstoppable champion, you can be able to stun them, but you would have to shatter them, of course. Now for the fragments, this one will increase the damage and size of the burst of stasis when you destroy a stasis crystal or defeating a frozen target. For this one, we are going to be doing both of them, so it's going to be very good. The second one enhances the stasis turret even more. Slow that you apply to targets last longer, which give you more of an opportunity to freeze them. And the next one will give you even more grenade energy, but you would have to take damage for that. And last but not least, whenever you shatter a stasis crystal, it will temporarily boost your grenade recharge rate, and shattering additional stasis crystals increases the duration of this benefit. And again, we're going to be spawning in tons of crystals because of our weapon and for our abilities as well, with the artifacts that we're using for this build, which enhances it even more. Now for the weapons. For the energy weapon, I chose to put this solar fusion rifle that comes with Slideways and Vorpal, because Vorpal is extremely good for energy weapons, because Vorpal increases the damage against bosses, vehicles, and guardians with their supers active. It just gives you a passive damage boost. boost for this weapon. I also want to deal high damage to champions, so that's why I put a fusion rifle. And now for the power weapon, be sure to put a stasis weapon. So for me in this video, I'm using this stasis rocket launcher that comes with envious assassin and bait and switch. And the perks that I mentioned for the fusion rifle and the rocket launcher, those are the god rolls if you guys are wondering. Now for the seasonal artifacts, here's what I was using to make this build even smoother and slower freezier. Let me show you guys the main artifact mods that you should be running for this build. This one will allow you to freeze combatants, but you would have to break the combatant shield with a stasis weapon. The next one, whenever defeating an encased combatant, spawns stasis crystals. When they mean by encased, they basically mean frozen. And last but not least, shattering encased targets and stasis crystals deals increased damage. Shattering stasis crystals releases shards of ice that damage and slows targets. For the champions that you can be able to stun are overload champions and unstoppable champions. And now let's head to the stats for this build. I do recommend going for resilience because remember, we are doing end game content, so the enemies are going to be tougher with more damage and more health. So for resilience, it would give you a 30% damage reduction, so that's going to be very good. And if you want to have 30% damage reduction for your resilience, you would have to have tier 10. And for discipline, of course, we're using a grenade build, so discipline reduces the cooldown for your grenades. Let's head to the armor mods. Let's start with the helmet. The first one will allow you to get orbs of power when getting rapid stasis weapon final blows. And in this case, we're going to be using that for our kinetic weapon and our power weapon. And the other two armor mod slots, I was using special ammo finder and heavy ammo finder. It increases the drop chance for special ammo and heavy ammo on kill. What's cool about these armor mods is that if you're using a primary weapon, especially an exotic weapon, final blows will help you find ammo more quickly. And who would have guessed we are using a primary exotic weapon, so that's going to be very good for this build. Now onto the gauntlets. The first one, I wanted to focus on my rift because I want more healing, so I put bolstering detonation. Grants class ability energy when you cause damage with a grenade. And what's cool about this is that it does count whenever you deal damage with your stasis turret. The next one is impact induction. Causing damage with a powered melee attack reduces your grenade cooldown. The main mod you should be using for the gauntlets is grenade kickstart. When your grenade energy is fully expended, your armor charge is consumed and you gain grenade energy for each armor charge used. So what that means is that the more armor charges you have and you would activate your grenade, it would consume your armor charges and convert it into grenade energy. Now onto the chest. The first two armor mods you should be using are resist mods. So in my case, I'm using arc resistance and void resistance. But you can change both of these armor mods depending on what activity you're playing. But the main one you got to put on is charged up because I really want to benefit getting a lot of grenade energy because of grenade kickstart. So for charged up, it would increase your armor charge stacks by 1. So instead of having 3, you are now going to have 4. Now for the leg armor. Stasis really isn't very good for healing, so I chose to put recuperation. Replenishes health each time you pick up an orb of power. The second one is innervation. Reduces grenade cooldown each time you pick up an orb of power. And again, we are getting stasis shards because of our exotic primary weapon, so I chose to put elemental charge. Collecting a stasis shard has an escalating chance to give you an armor charge. Now last but not least, we are on to the warlock bond. The first armor mod for the bond is bomber. Reduces grenade cooldown when using your class ability. And the next one is powerful attraction. Automatically collects nearby orbs of power when you activate your class ability, and that is your rift. And same thing with the next one, which is called the reaper. Shortly after using your class ability, your next weapon final blow spawns an orb of power. And if you guys would like to try out the build for yourself, the dim link will also be in the link in the description. If you guys need help in end game content, be sure to hop over to my kick streams. It would be in the link in the description if you're interested. If you guys would like to see more end game content builds, be sure to hit that like and sub button. I do really appreciate it. I hope you guys have a good rest of your day, evening, or afternoon. Take care and peace.